You stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Next item is roll call. Please note for the record the absence of Member Farina, or I should say Vice Chair Farina, and Member Burley, who is out with a medical issue. Mr. Farina notified us at the September meeting, I believe it was, that he would not be in attendance for this evening's meeting. The rest of the members are all in attendance. There is a quorum with which to conduct business. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Second.
We have a motion by Menendez, seconded by Lesich, to approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Petitioners and members of the audience. The Zoning Board of Appeals is herein created as a body of limited powers. Where there are practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships in the way of carrying out the strict letter of the Fraser Code, the board shall have powers in passing upon appeals to vary or modify any of the provisions of the code relating to the construction, structural changes in equipment, or alteration of buildings or structures so that the spirit of the code shall be observed, public safety secured, and substantial justice done. No variance in the provisions or requirements of the code shall be authorized by the board unless the board finds evidence that all the following facts and conditions exist. First, that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zoning district. Second, that such a variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right, similar to that possessed by other properties in the same district and in the same vicinity. The possibility of increased financial return shall not of itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. Third, that the authorizing of such a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the intent and purpose of the Fraser Code or the public interest. And finally, that the condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of the property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or recurrent in nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of general regulation for such condition or situation. The items before us this evening are public hearings items. When the public hearing is opened up and called to the floor, if you wish to speak on an item, please come forward, sit at the table, and if you would, please give us your name and address so that we might have that for the record. With all of that said and done, old business of the board, I'm not aware of any. Next item is public hearings, appeal number 22-04, variance request regarding the property at 33180 Groesbeck. Request a variance of section 32.44 of the Fraser zoning ordinance regarding the location and height of a fence in the front yard. Mr. Whitehall, if you would give us the background information regarding this request.
Yeah, so basically the sections of the zoning ordinance that are necessitating this request is one's from the zoning ordinance, and it says fences shall not be located in the required front yard or enclosed in the required parking area. And there's also a section from the Code of Ordinances that reads, no fence shall be erected between the front building line and the front property line in the premises. So what they're proposing, if you look at the PowerPoint here, this is the front yard, and this highlight is where they're proposing a 6-foot masonry wall. And that proposal is not in compliance with those two sections I just alluded to. So, and this is at 33180 gross spec, just for you guys to understand. So it's been to the Planning Commission at the September 7th meeting, and they did not fully approve the site plan because this masonry wall was not in compliance with the zoning ordinance, as I alluded to. There was some discussion about, so right now you're not allowed any fencing, but there was some discussion and support from the Planning Commission that would say, hey, how about a 2.5-foot fence so the visibility at that intersection is still held up? I guess that the applicant's pretty insistent about the 6-foot masonry wall being there, and that's the reason for this variance in front of us. If you'd like, I could go through each of the standards for variance review, Chair?
It's probably not necessary, but there may be some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Of course, yeah.
Are there questions for the planning consultant? The zoning of the property in question is,
CG.
and the zoning of the property adjacent to the property?
I believe that is also CG.
Okay. And you may have, well, maybe not. So the restriction on fencing in the front yard, or fences between the front building line and the front property line, that is throughout all districts, or is that just a CG?
That is for other than single-family zoning districts, so more than just the CG, but encapsulated in the CG, yes.
But all non-residential zoning districts? And the restrictions are the same whether it is a solid or an opaque versus a non-opaque?
Yes, it completely prohibits fencing within the required front yard. But that's kind of the interesting dichotomy between these two standards. They almost contradict in the fact that one's saying it's not allowed in the required front yard, while the other one's saying it's not allowed between the front building line and the front property line. So one's more restrictive than the other, but in any instance, this proposal contradicts with both of them.
But if you have a building that is constructed at the front setback line, they're identical. It's only if you have a building that is
Exactly.
back from the minimum front setback line that there would be potentially a difference between those two sections.
Yes.
Are there other questions for the planning consultant?
Yes, what about 9.3B? No fence shall be erected between the front building line and the front property line of any premises. However, such a fence may be erected on the premises where there exists in the immediate area such a fence, and upon determination by the zoning board of appeals, that erection would not be deleterious to the health, safety, or welfare of the citizens of the city.
So yeah, that is that's the entire paragraph of that section. And I will say that the big key in that is where there's fences that exist in the immediate area. To my knowledge, Paul directed me the history of this case, and he's not aware of any fences in the area that are in the front yard. Well, around that area at least.
Okay, what if we've identified some in the immediate area, or one?
Well, Paul did say there's history of these walls in the front yard. However, he can't find record of if they were legally approved or not.
And you're referring to the concrete wall?
Yes.
And not any fence in general?
I'm referring specifically to masonry.
Concrete wall. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the administration? Does petitioner have anything they wish to add to the administration's presentation or to their application? If you would, please come up and identify yourself for the record.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lena Asmar. I'm appearing on behalf of applicant Gabrara Holding LLC, and my client is Kevin Hanna, the owner. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You may sit down.
My client is Kevin Hanna, the owner of the property in question. Chair, I understand that in the last hearing, the proposal was denied by the Planning Commission. However, if this is not going to be approved by the board today as to the 6 feet wall, I've spoken with my client, and he is actually willing to accept the board proposal that was suggested in the previous hearing to basically erect 2 feet in the front line, start with the 2 feet, and then go up in height along the north line. Or the other alternative that I would like to suggest tonight is basically instruct 6 feet fence that would be considered as a decorative fence on the north line, where it does actually address all of the board's concern in terms of visibility. And as to the circulation, Chair, a vehicle would be able to drive around and not really obstruct circulation, because there is no driveway that separate the two properties. It's actually 2 separate properties. So that should not obstruct circulation. However, in terms of visibility, the 2 feet long wall in the front, or the fence that is basically a decorative iron fence, should address the board's concern as in regards to visibility. And Chair, the reason why we would like to instruct such a construction on the north line is because of the history that has been happening between these 2 properties. The restaurant of the owner of the adjacent property, which is actually a restaurant, has been told a million times to stop his customers from parking on my client's property. However, he did not take that seriously and never really instructed his customers to stop parking there. My client has put towing posts over the properties, and there still are parking on the property, to the event where my client has to call the police and get the police involved. I mean, Chair, the police should not be really wasting its resources on such a matter. It can be resolved by just separating the 2 properties, by basically instructing, a wall or a fence, so that customers cannot park on his property and cross over to the restaurant.
Other questions for the petitioner? I'm not sure who was first. We'll go with Ms. Menezes.
Would you be opposed to an aluminum or a wrought iron 4 feet height?
That should address the concern of my client, where he would stop vehicles from basically parking on the parking lot and crossing over to the restaurant. So no, the 4 feet should be okay.
And how about having the plan approval or the design approved by the Planning Commission
As to the fence?
as to the design?
Yeah, sure. That's as long as, addresses my client's concern, where customer cannot park and cross over, so that should be approved.
Right, if it were non-opaque and it were 4 feet tall, they shouldn't be able to cross.
Sure. Oh, they should be able to cross over?
No, they
Oh,
should
okay,
not.
yes, okay.
They should not, unless they were to climb over the top of it.
I don't believe they would at that point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, yeah, but I don't.
Yeah, and I think that would also add to the aesthetic of the property. I mean, my client has spent a lot of money. You've been on his property, Mr. Logan, and you've seen how much he has spent to these properties, and he's adding value to the city of Fraser. I mean, and he really, the thing is, the police came to the property because he had just done paving to the parking lot, and those customers didn't care. They just came and parked on the property. And it caused my client to spend extra money to basically resolve what they have damaged.
Member Logan.
A couple questions.
Yeah.
How far would you be going up towards Groesbeck? Do you go all the way up to the last parking spot towards Groesbeck?
I am not sure. I need to confirm with him.
Now, you're going to get couple people parking in that front couple parking spots. and
Okay.
Walk around it. You're not gonna shut them completely off.
Okay.
You're gonna get probably 95% of the people to shut off.
Exactly. And then, I mean, he can also keep having those towing signs on the property at the expense of the owner. So at least two versus 10 or 20.
What about, you guys have those big parking blocks there now, would they be staying there? Is that your property?
I am not sure. I have to verify with him.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, he couldn't come in today to the meeting because he's out of the country.
And there's a light pole there, is that your guys' light pole, or is that the neighbor's light pole?
Again, I am not familiar. I haven't been to the property myself, so I haven't familiar, but I can ask him and confirm. Yeah.
That light pole is the neighbor's parking. is
Okay.
Part of the neighbors,
Okay.
you'd be moving it in some.
Okay. Okay. You mean
The
the,
reason why I'm saying this is if you leave those parking blocks there, no one's gonna hit the fence.
yeah.
So that's why I didn't know if it's
Okay.
property or.
Or his, okay, I will check with him and ask, yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Other questions for the petitioner? I believe that you may have already addressed it, but just, the application that was submitted to us, and I do not know if you were the one or involved with filling it out, basically does not indicate a reason for seeking the variance. It indicates that it's for a 6-foot concrete wall, but no basis for that appeal. And you mentioned the history, and for those of us that may not know the history, the concern is that the patrons of the property to the north utilize your parking lot for that purpose.
Right.
And not trying to put words in your mouth, but that the desire of placing the fence there is to make it more difficult to do that, and hopefully reduce the amount of use of your client's parking lot for the adjacent business.
Yes.
And there is no fence proposed across the front of Groesbeck. Is that correct?
Not as of yet.
It wasn't
Wasn't in the site plan, no.
proposed as
No.
part, okay. So people will still be able to walk around the fence to get to the property to the north if they so choose to do so.
Yeah.
But that may help identify
Right.
the separation between the businesses there.
Right.
You had mentioned that your client was not in objection to a shorter, 2-foot-high fence, and doing a fence of a more translucent, probably a bad word, non-opaque nature,
Yeah.
wrought iron style. But you mentioned and then stepping the fence up to 6 feet.
Right, this is up to the board's decision. I'm saying I'm giving alternatives. If the board would approve the 6 feet, I mean, that would be what would my client prefer. But if it steps down in the front where the problem is, then my client would be agreeable to that.
Well, I guess the height of the fence, if the 2-foot fence defines the property line, why would it need to step up to a taller height?
I mean, because for decorative reasons also. I mean, at 2 feet is not gonna look as, and the thing is, the 2 feet, is it really gonna separate the two properties as much? We wanna make it seem like they're two separate properties. And the fence, the 2 feet is not gonna look as appealing as at 4 feet long or 6 feet long. if it was to only 2 feet, we could have done landscaping. But landscaping also needs maintenance, and that's money. So the fence would be the ideal option to address the board's concern and also not causing my client to spend additional money just on maintaining the landscaping.
Member Lesich.
Yes, I think, to clarify, you had two options, or two different proposals. One was a masonry wall that stepped down the closer you got to Groesbeck, and the other one was possibly a wrought iron or some kind of see-through fence. I just want to make sure that
Yes.
those were the two.
Yes.
And I believe Member Darmus, or Menendez, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
suggested a 4-foot high or something like that to add to that option, so.
Yes. And
Just wanted to make sure I understood that. It wouldn't be masonry
No,
and
it
then,
would be just-
then a fence.
Yeah.
I actually went by the property today, and I see that it's looking very good, but without those large parking blocks, it looks like a single property at the moment. It's very cleaned up.
Yeah.
And to admit, I have parked in that parking lot and gone to Aztec.
There you go.
It was COVID,
I
I was
appreciate
waiting for my
that.
taco, but.
Are you adding to my evidence? I like this.
But I do understand the problem, and I knew it as soon as I read this. I realized what the issue is.
Yeah, and then, I'm sorry to interrupt you, the reason why customers are doing this during COVID especially, because they have added a food truck.
That's why I was there and sitting in my car in your parking lot. So I do understand the problem, but I would like safety and those other elements included in it, so.
Thank you.
That's my comment on that right now.
Thank you. Yeah, and the food truck, I mean, I don't know if that was a temporary use till COVID. Yeah, because the food truck is still operating on the property where the restaurant went back to open in normal business hours. So we don't know why the food truck is still there. And just like a lot of issue with this guy, he doesn't comply with the city ordinance. He doesn't comply with what my client has asked him to do. He just like running his own business under his own policies.
And actually, that's a very good question. Mr. Whitehall, do you know the food truck on the adjacent property? Is that a permitted use? Was that a COVID relief effort? Is that a long-term installation there?
Unfortunately, I do not know the history of that, and I had not been brought up to speed about that situation. That's probably something we can check with Paul on tomorrow, if you'd like me to.
Because just my observation, and I'm not by there, I don't park in your lot and go next door, just so you know. But, that has seemed to be when the parking conditions or the lack of available parking on the adjacent site came to fruition is when the food truck arrived and the business opened back up. And it's my observation, it's the combination of those two that causes insufficient parking potentially on the site next door, which then causes the problem on the petitioner's site. And if that is going away at some point in the future, that may eliminate the problem and potentially eliminate the need for the variance. But if that's going to be a long-term solution or long-term installation there, it's going to continue, in my opinion, to be an issue. Mr. Logan.
2 questions.
Yes.
If you do the 4-foot fence, that'd be continuous from start to the back. You're not going to step that down?
From the front to the back.
Yeah.
I mean, for the fence just to look like,
You stay 4 feet.
yeah.
Now, you propose it to the rear building there where the yellow stops. Is that where you're going to stop? Or are you going to go all the way back to the back property line?
I mean, if it's gonna be a fence, no, throughout the property to keep it like consistent. If that's something the board would allow, but if it's not I mean, what would be your suggestion of safe option to do at that point? Is a brick wall or like keep it the fence?
Officially, from the front wall of the building back, you do not need any action by this board
Okay,
to do that.
Okay.
You may need to have a permit, you may need to have
okay,
site plan approval by the planning commission, but you do not need action by this board.
okay, a variance, okay, all right.
But would you continue it all the way down?
If, I mean, I have to consult with my client, I don't know the
The
answer.
reason why I'm saying that
Yeah.
is because if people park in front of that building, they can walk around that side now.
No, okay, no, I mean,
what I'm saying?
it has to be all consistent.
to rear
Yeah.
property
I
line.
just don't know if he's gonna have a brick wall at that point, or it will be like a fence. Yeah,
Something will be there.
yeah, and I even told him, I said, why would you want a fence? It costs more. But he is so frustrated, and he said, I will pay $35,000 to stop his customers from parking on my parking lot. Like, he's willing to spend that much just to stop him from ruining his property. And I mean, you both been on his property. He has spent so much money to make it appealing, and bring, new businesses. And now this guy is ruining his progress. And I haven't really spoken with the restaurant owner, but from what I have heard, he doesn't even care about police appearing on the site. He just like, he's at the point where he gonna get sued.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. That's actually what the police suggested, just sue the guy. That's why it was his comment to my client was, your option is to sue him for the damages.
Not sure who was first, Mr. Lessig?
Yeah, just to go back to the point about the food truck,
Okay.
is I can tell you that nothing ever came before the city council during COVID, and we never discussed, that was never discussed as an official act. So I don't know what the status is, how it got there,
Okay.
and how long it's supposed to stay, but
Okay. I have met with Paul Arbiel, the city planner, and spoke about the food truck. He didn't know what the status is, but he directed me to speak to an enforcement officer in the building
Yeah.
to see when it was supposed to expire.
well, COVID was a bit unusual when things just started popping up without permission, and that's one of those things that did, and we never took any action on it.
Yeah, and then I called the restaurant myself. I thought they were still closed due to, financial hardships.
Oh, no.
And then someone answered the phone and told me we're open 11 to 11. I was like, okay, great. So we have a food truck and a restaurant in a distance of like this big.
Ms. Menendez?
I am definitely against a masonry wall.
Okay.
4 feet, 6 feet, I think, just drop there, especially after putting as much money as you put in there to renovate it.
Okay.
I get it, you want to separate that. And I think a non-site obscuring fence, 4 feet all the way down, aesthetically would look appealing, it would solve your problem, and that's my thought on that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the petitioner? At this point, I will open up the public hearing. This is appeal number appeal number 22-04 regarding the property at 33-180 Groesbeck. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to be heard? Mr. Whitehall, have we received any written correspondence from the public hearing notices?
No.
Once again, this is appeal number 22-04. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to be heard? Recognizing no one to be heard from the public, I will close the public hearing and bring it back up to the board. That took you long enough. Ms. Menendez.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve variance 2204 for GABA Holding LLC to erect a structure meeting the definition of a fence between the front building line and the front property line with the following conditions. The fence placed on the north property line must be 4 feet wrought iron, or aluminum. Non-site obscuring fence. Non-site obscuring fence means a non-opaque fence that can be seen through by persons outside its confines and does not act as a privacy fence. The fence design must be approved by the Planning Commission prior to any installation. Such a variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right like that possessed by other properties in the same vicinity. Vintage House and the United States Armory have non-site obscuring fences in the front building line. Although they're 6 feet high, I'm making the motion for 4 feet high. And lastly, authorizing such a variance will not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property. And if any of my fellow board members have anything they want to add to the motion or anything I've left out?
How about if we get a second first?
Okay.
Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion by Menendez, second by Logan, to approve Appeal 22-04 with the conditions noted. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, I do have one, I guess, suggestion or thought for the board, if that's allowed.
Certainly.
I guess I don't, maybe this is directed towards the petitioner, but as far as maintenance goes, it's my concern that perhaps,
No, the green button.
Okay. So it's my concern that perhaps if maintenance on the fence needed to occur, perhaps the property owner would have to go on that northern parcel. So I would recommend maybe a condition requiring a maintenance easement that could be recorded. That's just a suggestion. Obviously, if something needed to happen on the other side of the fence, it's just a suggestion, obviously legally, to make that kind of easier in case that needed to be.
I don't disagree with the concern or thought, although maintaining a 4-foot-high wrought iron style rail fence would be much more practical from the petitioner's side than maintaining a 4-foot or a 6-foot-high masonry wall, which is nearly impossible to do without. You could reach through, reach around, reach over a 4-foot-high. Doing that with a 6-foot-high masonry wall would be nearly impossible. Even constructing it would be nearly impossible. I have one comment. Just, Ms. Menendez, in your motion, you specified a 4-foot-high fence, and I guess I would ask that you revise that to not more than 4-foot-high, which is typically the way that fence ordinances of that type are designed. If they wanted to put it 42 inches, I don't want to tell them they can't.
I'll revise my motion for the fence placed at the north property line must not be more than 4 feet high.
Thank you.
Do we need the second to?
Well, do you have any objection? All right, there's concurrence with the second on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing no others, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. I need 2 more copies of the plot plan. Wow, it's been so long that the perma stamp has dried out.
I was going to say, the last time you had trouble with it.
This is bad. I don't even know if this is our, I think this is our.
Add some hand sanitizer to it.
I was just going to say, put a little of that sanitizer on that, it'll moisten it up.
Did it get it?
Fairly.
Try some hand sanitizer.
I'll let you rub your,
Then you're going to
on
get
the
all,
ink pad. Did I get
one more?
Oh, never mind. Sorry. Thank you.
You don't need these?
No, actually, what I do need, you didn't give
Hold on.
I think she didn't give you.
This,
Ms. Ray?
Yes, please. He's got it. Thank you very much. I know there is a desire to save a tree and be conservation-minded and so forth, but printing ZBA items back-to-back where there's two different items, not a good idea.
I'll agree to that.
When you come back in town?
Probably next week. Yeah. I have a question about the food truck. What should I do about it? Should I just speak to the enforcement officer and see when it would expire?
Yes.
Okay. He's gonna be Lena, I sent you for a while. Came back with a fence.
What do we have?
Yeah.
Here is a copy of the approved plan for your record.
Thank you. May I just add, it's not going to be for the fence, where people can literally go inside the fence and cross over to the other property. Like, it shouldn't be like at a distance, I'm not sure, like, how far away each iron rod. Like,
Oh, nobody will be able to fit through them.
yeah, okay,
They typically are 4-inch centered.
okay. I mean, people can still like walk through it.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But they could walk through it once, but not on the way back
this-
after having,
It's gonna be broke.
after all those fajitas, you know.
Yeah.
The food is really good.
Yes.
And what you can do is take your designs.
Okay.
And have the planning commission review them.
Okay, before, okay,
Yeah, before you do anything, make sure that they review
okay,
your design,
okay,
the actual placement of where you want to put it.
okay.
Make sure you're on your side of that line.
Okay. He's going to have to submit a revised site plan with the other requirements that needs to be done, and I'll ask him to do that.
Yep. All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is new business of the board. I am not aware of any new business of the board coming before us this evening. Item 8 is unfinished business of the board. I'm also not aware of any unfinished business that we need to take care of this evening. Next item is Planning Commission Liaison Member Report. Member Farina is not here this evening. Is there any comment, question, or item that we want to try and get information on in his absence? Go ahead, Ms. Menendez.
Once again, I'm familiar. There was a variance that was withdrawn. Application withdrawn, a variance has already been granted on this property, 2202. Which one is that for? Are they referring to this one? No, it's 2204. What was 2202?
It might be a variance application that was submitted that we never saw.
Okay.
It would go to McKenna, it would not go to my office, so I
Okay.
do not know.
I'm thinking, did I miss a meeting, or?
I am not aware of case 2202. Where, did we see that on the agenda for today?
No, it's on the
No,
report.
it's on the report.
On the monthly report, last item.
shooters, we never got anything on it. We never got,
It might be that they were replacing a fence and upon research of the records found that a variance was already granted for it. I don't know.
Maybe it was an instance similar to that. I cannot speak to the history on that one, though.
okay.
But in general, I don't think that one ever made it to us, but there may
Okay.
have been an application submitted and therefore numbered for the case, but it was withdrawn.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the October 6th meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Zoning Board of Appeals of October 6, 2022.
I second.
We have motion by Lesich, seconded by Logan to approve the minutes. Is there discussion?
I have a
Member
question.
Menendez.
I have a question. And I don't know if this is for our attorneys. If we make a condition, do we have to verbally say, okay, conditional upon A, B, C, and D? Like on here, the Commissioner Brule asked that it be limited to 10 yards. I think he means that as a condition, but we don't have it listed at that. I know when I gave mine that it was, Commissioner Menendez added that the property owner provide a parking agreement. That's a condition. Is this going to be interpreted that same way?
Let me take a look really quick, so I can see what you're looking at.
And in the future, should we specify that wording?
I do think that the way that I read this is that looks to be a condition to me, but I do think that your suggestion being clear, saying based on these conditions, like you did tonight with the motion, obviously makes an easier record for everyone to understand. But I think in layman's terms, this is saying that the approval is conditioned upon the 10 yards or less, and also that the parking agreement be approved.
So, Mr. Chair, should we change this language?
I think it's probably sufficient, as is.
For now?
Yes.
Thank you.
But I think in the future, it would be good habit.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Need to get a better chair. Is there any other discussion on the approval of the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
No, we have the best chair.
Next item on the agenda is member comments and items of interest. Are there any items of interest that anyone wants to bring forward this evening?
Everything's quiet at the council.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is, we don't have public participation. Oh, I jumped
did.
over public participation. I'm terribly sorry. Is there anyone in the public? I'll go back to item 10 that I inadvertently stepped over. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to be heard regarding any item on tonight's agenda or otherwise? Please note for the record that no one in the public wishes to be heard. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Is there such a motion?
Like the motion?
Make the motion we adjourn.
I'll second it.
We have motion by Chimeni, seconded by Menendez for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.